3 in the morning. Your eyes open. No alarm. No noise. Just sudden, crushing awareness. Your heart races. Your mind floods with every mistake you made 5 years ago, every bill coming due, every conversation you mishandled. The world is silent, but inside your skull, it is screaming. Why does this happen? Why does the quietest hour become the loudest? This is not random. Franz Kafka lived this torment nightly. He wrote in his diaries about lying awake, trapped in what he called the trial of consciousness. The courtroom that never closes. The judge that never sleeps. Tonight, we enter the psychology of 3 a.m. anxiety through the eyes of a man who mapped its architecture. This is not about sleep tips. This is about understanding why your mind ambushes you in darkness, and what that reveals about being human. Franz Kafka's diaries read like medical records of the soul. November 1913. He writes, I lie in bed like a stone at the bottom of a well, hearing the hours strike above me. He did not struggle with occasional sleeplessness. He battled systematic nocturnal persecution. His insomnia was not a symptom. It was a condition of existence. Kafka described his nights as periods of hyperclarity where all social masks dissolved. During the day, he functioned. He worked his insurance job. He attended family dinners. But at 3 a.m., the performance ended. What remained was raw consciousness confronting its own absurdity. He wrote that nighttime stripped away the protective layer of purpose that daylight provided. Without the distraction of productivity, he faced the terrifying question, what am I actually doing with this life? The psychology here is precise. During deep sleep, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thought and perspective, goes offline. But during partial waking states, especially in the early morning hours, your amygdala, your fear center, remains highly active while your logical controls are weakened. This creates what researchers call disinhibited emotional processing. Your brain produces fears without the ability to contextualize them properly. Kafka experienced this as what he termed the trial without end. In his novel The Trial, the protagonist Joseph K. is arrested but never told his crime. The legal system operates, but its logic is hidden. The charges are real but unknowable. This is the exact structure of 3 a.m. anxiety. You feel accused. You feel guilty. But of what? The mind cannot articulate the crime, yet the conviction feels absolute. The phenomenon intensifies because nighttime isolation removes social validation. Kafka wrote extensively about how human meaning depends on witness. During the day, you exist in relation to others. Your boss needs that report. Your friend expects that call. These external anchors provide temporary purpose. But at 3 a.m., all witnesses vanish. You are alone with the question, if no one is watching, if no action is required, what justifies my existence? This is not clinical depression, though it shares features. This is existential hyperawareness. Your defenses are down. The comfortable narratives you tell yourself about progress and purpose dissolve. What remains is the raw fact of being, stripped of meaning. Kafka called this the nakedness of consciousness. The mind, without its daily costume, feels unbearably exposed. Modern research confirms Kafka's intuition. Cortisol, your stress hormone, naturally peaks around 3 to 4 a.m. as part of your circadian rhythm. This hormonal spike, combined with the reduced cognitive control of partial waking, creates a perfect storm for catastrophic thinking. Your brain is chemically primed for threat detection at precisely the moment when your ability to assess threats rationally is weakest. But Kafka went deeper than biology. He understood that 3 a.m. anxiety reveals a structural problem in how we construct meaning. We build our sense of purpose on external validation, achievement, and social role. These are fragile foundations. At 3 a.m., when all external structures are invisible, the foundation cracks. The anxiety is not irrational. It is your psyche recognizing that the life you are living depends on conditions that could disappear at any moment. In his short story The Burrow, Kafka presents the perfect metaphor for nocturnal anxiety. An unnamed creature spends its entire existence constructing an elaborate underground fortress. It digs tunnels within tunnels. It builds false entrances to confuse predators. It creates food storage chambers for security. The creature dedicates every waking hour to perfecting its defenses. But here is the revelation. The more secure the burrow becomes, the more anxious the creature grows. It worries about undiscovered weak points. It obsesses over sounds that might indicate invasion. It cannot enjoy the security it built because the act of building security makes it hyper-aware of vulnerability. The fortress becomes a prison of vigilance. Kafka wrote this story during a period of intense insomnia. The burrow is not about physical safety. It is about the psychology of control. The creature represents the human impulse to eliminate uncertainty through preparation and structure. But this impulse contains a fatal paradox. The more you try to secure your life against chaos, the more aware you become of how much chaos exists. This is the mechanism of 3 a.m. anxiety. During the day, you build your burrow. You optimize your career. You maintain relationships. You save money. You plan for contingencies. These activities provide the illusion of control. But at 3 a.m., lying awake, you suddenly see all the tunnels you have not yet dug. Every achievement reveals 10 new vulnerabilities. Your mind catalogs threats that your daytime defenses cannot address. Franz Kafka understood that this vigilance is not pathological. It is the logical result of being a conscious creature in an uncertain world. The creature in the burrow is not crazy. It is responding rationally to a genuine problem. No amount of preparation can eliminate the fundamental vulnerability of existence. You cannot build a burrow secure enough to justify relaxation. There will always be one more tunnel to dig, one more entrance to disguise, one more sound to investigate. The psychological torture is this. The activity that should produce security, the building of the burrow, actually produces anxiety. Because the building makes you conscious of everything you have to lose. Before you had the burrow, you had nothing to defend. Now you have everything to defend and insufficient means to defend it all. Progress creates vulnerability. Kafka's protagonist experiences what psychologists now call hypervigilance, a state where threat detection never turns off. The creature cannot rest inside its own fortress. It ventures outside to listen for enemies, then worries about the burrow being invaded while it is away. It returns inside, then worries about not monitoring external threats. There is no position of safety. Every choice contains exposure. This is your 3 a.m. mind. You have built a life, a career, relationships, an identity. These are your burrow. But at 3 a.m., you suddenly see how fragile the whole structure is. One illness could destroy your finances. One mistake could end your relationship. One economic shift could erase your security. The life you built to feel safe now feels like an elaborate trap. You cannot defend all the entrances simultaneously. Kafka wrote, "The decisive moment in human development is continuous. The burrow is never finished. There is no moment where you complete the structure and finally rest. The act of living is the act of continuous fortification against continuous threat." This is not pessimism. This is the recognition of what consciousness costs. Awareness of mortality, of vulnerability, of uncertainty, these are not disorders. They are the price of being awake. Here is where Kafka's insight becomes transformative. He recognized two competing clocks governing human experience: the biological clock and the existential clock. Understanding their conflict is the key to 3 a.m. anxiety. Your biological clock is ancient. It governs sleep, hunger, hormone release, energy patterns. It operates on roughly 24-hour cycles refined over millions of years of evolution. This clock is mechanical, predictable. At 3 a.m., it signals a cortisol spike to prepare your body for waking. It lowers your cognitive defenses as part of sleep's cycle transition. This is biology. It is not personal. But your existential clock operates on a completely different time frame. This is the clock that measures meaning. It asks, am I progressing towards something that matters? It tracks not hours but significance. And here is the problem. The existential clock has no natural cycle. It does not reset daily. It accumulates. Every unresolved question, every delayed decision, every abandoned dream, these pile up on the existential clock without relief. At 3 a.m., these two clocks collide. Your biological clock triggers partial waking with elevated stress hormones and lowered rational control. Your existential clock, which has been quietly accumulating debts all week, all month, all year, suddenly demands attention. The combination is devastating. You are biologically vulnerable and existentially exposed simultaneously. Kafka experienced this collision acutely. He wrote, "During the day I am nothing more than a slight irritation to myself. At night I expand to infinity." His biological clock functioned. He slept, he woke, he ate. But his existential clock was in chaos. His father demanded he join the family business. His own writing called him toward artistic creation. His relationships required conventional commitment. His inner nature resisted domestication. These conflicts were not resolvable by willpower or discipline. They were structural contradictions in how he was living. This is why 3 a.m. anxiety resists conventional solutions. Meditation apps address the biological clock. They can calm your nervous system, regulate cortisol, improve sleep architecture. But they cannot touch the existential clock. That clock is not asking for relaxation. It is asking for reckoning. It wants to know, is this life worth living? Are you becoming who you are meant to become? These questions do not respond to breathing exercises. In the Metamorphosis, Kafka's most famous work, Gregor Samsa wakes up transformed into an insect. The story begins with this sentence: as Gregor Samsa awoke one morning from uneasy dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a gigantic insect. Notice, he wakes up. The transformation is not the main event. The waking is. Before the transformation, Gregor was already living as an insect. He worked a job he hated to support a family that took him for granted. He had no authentic relationships. No creative life. No autonomous purpose. He was functionally dead already. The physical transformation simply makes visible what was always true. Gregor was alienated from his own existence. The metamorphosis is not punishment. It is revelation. His insect body is the externalization of his internal state. He was already isolated, already incomprehensible to others, already trapped in a life without meaning. 3 a.m. anxiety is your metamorphosis moment. It is your psyche forcing you to see what your daytime defenses hide. You are living in contradiction. The life you present to the world and the life you feel internally are not aligned. Kafka wrote, "You can hold yourself back from the sufferings of the world, that is something you are free to do, but perhaps this very holding back is the one suffering you could avoid. The alienation you feel at 3 a.m. is not random brain chemistry misfiring. It is accurate perception momentarily freed from social performance. During the day, you maintain the fiction that everything is fine. You smile at work. You respond to messages. You fulfill obligations. But at 3 a.m., the maintenance stops. What remains is the gap between the life you are living and the life you know you should be living. This gap is not a symptom. It is information. The Romanian philosopher Emil Cioran, writing decades after Kafka, explored similar terrain in his book On the Heights of Despair. Cioran described insomnia as the only honest relationship with existence. He wrote, "I do not believe in the power of reason. I believe only in the existence of suffering." For Cioran, the person who sleeps peacefully is either ignorant or delusional. The insomniac sees clearly. This is not romantic nihilism. Cioran argued that moments of despair contain more philosophical truth than years of comfortable certainty. When you are stable, employed, healthy, in relationship, you can believe your life has inherent meaning. But strip away those conditions. Lose the job. End the relationship. Face illness. Suddenly the meaning evaporates. This reveals that the meaning was never intrinsic. It was conditional. 3 a.m. anxiety is your mind testing the conditions and finding them insufficient. Cioran wrote, "Only one thing matters, learning to be the loser." The modern self-help industry teaches the opposite. It promises that with the right habits, mindset, and strategy, you can win consistently. But Kafka and Cioran recognize something deeper. The human condition is not a game you can win. It is a situation you must endure. At 3 a.m., you are confronted with this reality. No amount of optimization makes you immortal. No achievement makes you invulnerable. No relationship makes you complete. This is where logic fails when you are tired. Your daytime mind operates on problem-solving logic. Identify the problem. Research solutions. Implement the solution. Evaluate results. This works for external challenges. It does not work for existential challenges. At 3 a.m., your mind tries to apply problem-solving logic to questions that have no solutions. How do I eliminate the risk of death? How do I guarantee meaning? How do I secure love permanently? These questions are unanswerable, but your exhausted brain keeps trying to answer them anyway. The cognitive dissonance is unbearable. You know logically that certain things cannot be solved, but you feel emotionally that they must be solved. Kafka captured this perfectly in his parable Before the Law. A man from the country seeks entry to the law. A doorkeeper blocks his way, saying not yet. The man waits his entire life at the entrance. He tries bribery. He tries reasoning. He tries begging. Nothing works. Finally, dying, he asks why no one else has sought entry here. The doorkeeper replies, "This gate was made only for you. I am now going to shut it." The parable's meaning is devastating. The law, meaning truth or justice or ultimate meaning, is simultaneously available and inaccessible. The gate exists for you, but you will never be admitted. You are created with the need for meaning, then placed in a world where final meaning is permanently deferred. The waiting is the point. There is no resolution coming. The doorkeeper will never say come in. 3 a.m. anxiety replicates this structure. You feel that there must be an answer, a way to live that resolves the contradictions. But the doorkeeper keeps saying not yet. Not this relationship. Not this job. Not this achievement. Not yet. And your logical mind, exhausted and desperate, keeps trying new approaches, new angles, new arguments. But the problem is not solvable by logic because the problem is not logical. It is structural. You are a finite being asking infinite questions. The mismatch is permanent. Modern psychology calls this rumination. Your mind loops on unsolvable problems because it is wired to solve problems. But rumination misses the deeper pattern. You are not stuck on specific problems. You are stuck on the you are problem. The foundational impossibility of being a conscious creature with no guaranteed meaning. That specific problem about work, or money, or relationship is just the current costume the you are problem is wearing. Solve that problem, and the you are problem will find a new costume tomorrow night. Kafka understood this completely. He did not try to cure his insomnia. He tried to extract wisdom from it. His writing is not advice. It is documentation. He mapped the territory of existential anxiety with more precision than any psychologist or philosopher before or since. He did not offer hope. He offered recognition. And that recognition, paradoxically, is where relief begins. So what do you do at 3 a.m. when your mind is screaming? Kafka's answer is not what you expect. You accept the chaos. Not passive acceptance. Not defeat. Active acceptance. The recognition that this anxiety is not a malfunction. It is consciousness doing what consciousness does. It is asking the largest questions at the worst possible time because that is when defenses are down and truth can break through. The discomfort is not a bug. It is a feature. Kafka wrote, "You do not need to leave your room. Remain sitting at your table and listen. Do not even listen, simply wait, be quiet, still and solitary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet. This is not about solving the anxiety. This is about changing your relationship to it. At 3 a.m., you are being given information. Your current life structure contains contradictions. The person you present to the world is not aligned with the person you actually are. The goals you are pursuing do not match your deepest values. The relationships you maintain are not nourishing your soul. The work you do does not express your creative nature. These are not psychological symptoms. These are navigational signals. The modern world teaches you to suppress these signals. Take the medication. Distract yourself. Optimize your sleep hygiene. But Kafka suggests a different path. Listen to the signal. What is the anxiety actually saying? Not the surface content, the worries about money or status or relationships. The deeper content. The structural message. Where in your life are you betraying yourself? Where are you living for external validation instead of internal truth? Where have you chosen security over authenticity? This does not mean quit your job tomorrow or abandon your commitments. It means stop treating the anxiety as an enemy. Treat it as a messenger. Your psyche is not attacking you. It is trying to wake you up. The transformation Gregor Samsa underwent was horrific, but it was also liberating. Once he became an insect, he no longer had to pretend to be human. He could stop performing. The burden of false identity was lifted. Your 3 a.m. anxiety is inviting you toward a similar liberation. Not physical transformation, but psychological transformation. The shedding of false selves. The release of performances that exhaust you. The honest acknowledgement that the life you are living might not be the life you are meant to live. This acknowledgement does not provide immediate comfort. But it provides something more valuable. It provides truth. Kafka spent his life torn between duty and desire, between his father's expectations and his own creative calling, between conventional stability and authentic expression. He never resolved these tensions. He died young, his best work unpublished, his relationships unresolved. But he left behind a body of writing that maps the psychological terrain of modern alienation with unmatched precision. He did not solve the problem of being human. He documented it. And that documentation is gift enough. Because when you wake at 3 a.m. and your mind is screaming, you are not alone. Franz Kafka woke there too. Albert Camus woke there. Jean-Paul Sartre woke there. Dostoevsky woke there. Every thinking person who has ever lived has woken there. The anxiety is not unique to you. It is the cost of consciousness. And consciousness, despite its burden, is still worth the price. So tonight, when you wake at 3 a.m., do not fight it. Do not hate yourself for it. Do not immediately reach for solutions. Instead, recognize it. This is your psyche trying to communicate something your daytime mind refuses to hear. This is your existential clock demanding attention. This is your invitation to live more honestly, more authentically, more aligned with who you actually are beneath the social performance. The path forward is not comfort. It is courage. The courage to face the questions that have no answers. The courage to live with uncertainty. The courage to build a life that serves your inner truth rather than external expectations. Kafka never achieved this completely. But he pointed the way. His final words, written in his diary shortly before his death, the meaning of life is that it stops. At 3 a.m., you are confronting that truth. Your life will stop. The time you have is limited. The question is not how to eliminate anxiety. The question is how to live in a way that makes the anxiety meaningful. How to build a life so aligned with your deepest values that when you wake at 3 a.m., instead of dread, you feel something else. Not peace. Not certainty. But recognition. The recognition that you are living your actual life, not a performance of someone else's expectations. That is the psychology of 3 a.m. anxiety. That is Kafka's gift. Not a cure, but a map. Not hope, but honesty. And in a world drowning in false promises and empty optimism, honesty might be the most valuable thing we have. Subscribe to Drawn Psyche for more journeys into the psychology of being human. Share this video with someone who understands what 3 a.m. feels like. And next time your mind wakes you in darkness, remember Franz Kafka lying awake in Prague, writing by candlelight, documenting the same struggle you are living right now. Franz Kafka wrote, A book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. Let this be your axe. Let 3 a.m. be the crack in the ice. And let what flows through be not despair, but truth.